Essa música.
Hello, I am Aisha.
And Paula, your cultural hybrid mental health therapist.
Here to explore unfiltered and heartfelt conversations on core issues
that affect us as human beings. Get ready for honest, captivating,
and real stories that take you on a journey to navigate your life
in the best possible way.
So grab a seat
and stay with us on this episode of
Do We Have Your Attention?
Hello again. This is the Do We Have Your Attention podcast. And
Hello.
I am one of two of your lovely hosts.
Period.
I am Paula Martins, and the other lovely host is
Aisha P. Let me put my own P too. You are welcome. Mm-hmm.
Welcome to your favorite unfiltered mental health podcast with your favorite two licensed psychotherapists, beautiful Black women, strong Black women, lovely Black women.
Hail us.
It's standard. What's that thing when you say, like, pressuring someone's neck?
Yes, put the pressure out there. These are true things. So yes, please. I like to hear it. I like to hear it.
So before we obviously get started,
yes,
if you've been listening to us and by now you are part of our community, you know that we're obviously going to be doing our feelings check-in.
Yeah.
And it is important for you as well to just take a second, check in with yourself. How are you feeling as you're starting to listen to this episode? But also, how are you feeling as you're listening, and then sort of checking with yourself at the end of the episode and reflecting on what your own takeaways are from this episode.
Yeah.
So
with that being said, how am I feeling? Let me start with myself. How am I feeling?
That's a good way to start. Like, how am I feeling?
You made me reflect, like, how am I really feeling? I think right now I'm feeling yellow, so positive energy, feeling light. But this our topic might be a little bit triggering, so I'm feeling a little bit curious as to how this conversation will go for both of us. And I'm very curious as to if I'm feeling very comfortable enough to be vulnerable with this topic. But I think I'm going to challenge myself to do that. But yeah, how are you feeling?
Well, I feel like as though you took the words out of my mouth.
We're in sync.
As we started recording, I was like, oh, why is my stomach all of a sudden acting like, ugh? And then I'm like, girl, that is your nervous system telling you how you're most likely feeling about this conversation. But so I would say I am feeling calm. I'm feeling relaxed. But I'm also feeling curious as well. I really would like a little bit of green with a little bit of pink, and just really seeing how this conversation is going to go. And just like yourself, honestly, obviously we know what we're going to be talking about.
Right.
And I was just like, oh, yikes. You're going to have to be vulnerable.
I know. My voice is even shaking small.
So I think, obviously, for our listeners, if this is how you're also feeling, it's safe to say that it's okay to feel this way. Being
Very
nervous,
normal.
being fearful, being anxious just shows that you're human. How do I put this? There is meaning attached to it in the sense where it can be an indicator that this is a topic of conversation that actually you really need to sit and listen to.
Right.
Or this might be a topic of conversation where you might need to maybe do a little bit more work in fully understanding where you're at as it pertains to this topic.
Right.
Now, I keep saying this topic, so obviously, Aisha, can you please let our listeners know what the topic for episode 6 is?
Yes, I know the people are like, what's the topic? This one, they are talking about it this way. Yes, so today we're asking, do we give people space to grow with or without us? What happens when we start moving in one direction and someone we love is just stuck? Do we slow down? Do we keep going? Do we try to pull them along? What is the right thing to do?
I have no idea. I have no idea. Don't ask me.
But also, so wait, there's the flip side, right? When you're the one being left behind, watching someone you care about change, evolve, and maybe even move on without you, it hurts, right?
Yep.
What do we do in those situations? That's what we're trying to talk about today.
Yep. That is so true. Growth obviously is natural.
Very.
Change is inevitable. And oftentimes life is sweeter or at least more enjoyable when you're someone who is able to pivot, able to be flexible, able to grow, change, evolve.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that because it's natural and it's inevitable, it doesn't mean that it's easy.
Yes.
So that's sort of
very difficult. The premise.
Where we're going to be at today.
Yes. So should we dive right into it?
Absolutely. I am ready when you are.
All right, let's get into it. So Paula Martins, what do you think it means to grow apart? And how do you know in your own personal experience or just from when you've observed with your clients, you know, when they're sharing something and you're like, it sounds like they're growing apart. How do we know when it's happening in our relationships?
Yeah, that's a good point. I was initially thinking about myself and then I started thinking about my clients, but I think I'm obviously going to use myself. My clients will be a cop-out at this moment, just trying to avoid being vulnerable.
Shout out to the clients.
I think is when there's clear signs of when people might be growing apart.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes it's a change in connection.
Yeah.
It's a change in self.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's reduced communication. Oftentimes you might find that the closeness that you have to someone is not necessarily reminiscent of what it was when you first started, whatever connection you might have with them.
Yeah.
But then typically connections are established to grow.
Yes.
So it's only nurtured like a plant over a period of time. The more you nurture it, the more it grows, the closer you get.
Yeah.
So when you find stagnancy or just a decline, oftentimes that lets you see that there might be some change that is happening in said relationship or connection. And obviously when we say relationship, we mean platonic, romantic, familial. I want to say work, but I'm sure we're going to be talking a lot more of the platonic
and romantic, right. But work to count. You're right. It does count. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
How about you? What do you think?
I agree with you. I do feel like growing apart, of course, when we feel like we're going in different directions in life. And I think sometimes it could be emotionally, it could be due to like platonic or romantic relationships. It could be mentally, it could even be spiritually.
Yeah.
And I like that you said that stagnancy, because sometimes you feel like your shared values and priorities have shifted. Your conversations just feel superficial, like you both aren't growing anymore. You're not really having conversations that aid that direction that you want to go in your life. So it just feels kind of stagnant. And then as a result, you start noticing that you're reaching out less, or you guys don't communicate as much as you used to. When you do talk, it's kind of basic. How are you? How was work? Oh yeah, okay. What else do we talk about? And I think in talking about vulnerability, in my own experience, I know that I'm growing apart from someone when I don't feel safe enough to be vulnerable anymore. Like I keep my conversations very specific about what I'm sharing, and I don't feel safe enough in that space, which is very sad because it's like when you do reflect on the relationship you had with this person, it's like, wow, I really used to share everything with this person. This person used to be my go-to contact person when something happens, whether good or bad. And now I don't feel that connection anymore to be vulnerable in that space anymore. It just feels like we're no longer pouring back into one another anymore. It's very superficial.
Yeah.
Very sad. I'm talking about it. I'm feeling very sad, actually. I'm thinking about one of my relationships.
And I really appreciate you opening that opportunity for us to actually connect on this and for people to obviously connect with what we're saying as well, because you're spot on. For me, whenever anybody asks me what do I value in relationships, I always say safety, security. And I'm saying physical, emotional security.
Right.
I also say consideration. I
times
also
50.
What do you say?
I said consideration times 50.
Times 50. And oftentimes when I I almost don't expect anything from someone, or I don't really, if I'm feeling deep disappointment, it's very clear that I am growing apart from someone. And the safety thing is so true, because I'm sure by now everybody knows that I am very open. I would at least consider myself to be someone who is very open. I own my truth. I own my experiences. I'm not afraid to talk about things that are oftentimes uncomfortable. But if I find myself being closed, that is a very telltale sign that there's something about my environment or the relationship that is not trusting and is not safe. That makes me not see this as anything that can give me value anymore.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think safety is definitely one of the most important things we need in any relationship. Again, whether it's platonic, romantic, your parents, your siblings, anything, right? Because lack of safety means lack of vulnerability. Lack of vulnerability means lack of connection. So
absolutely.
Yeah, I'm so glad that we're diving straight into it.
I know. And of course, just for the sake of self-disclosure, I am going to be using my most recent romantic relationship that ended now maybe almost a year ago as like a point of reference when I think about this, because obviously this topic is very much so in line with basically what led to us basically going our separate ways.
Right.
So I do want to obviously ask you, how do we balance giving someone space to evolve while still maintaining a meaningful connection with them?
That's a very deep question. I think balance would require you first respecting what this person is going through or what changes they're experiencing that's causing this disconnection in your relationship. I also think like communicating, but also communication means being intentional. Because I feel like sometimes when you start to notice that you're growing apart from someone, the initial response is to be defensive, right? And then just like, I'm cutting this person off. I don't want to be their friends anymore. But I think when you have that conversation with them, like asking them, kind of understanding where they're at and why this is happening in our relationship, right? That will require also, again, vulnerability. If we've already built that bond in our friendship, we should be able to have these kind of hard, or romantic relationship, we should be able to have these hard conversations because it's what we're experiencing in the moment. But after communicating, respecting their decision or where they're at right now that's causing this disconnection, but also reflecting on your part, like, what am I doing that could also be causing this disconnection? Because I think sometimes it's easy to put the blame on the other person and be like, oh, they're doing this, they stop calling more. Okay, but maybe that's reflective that you need to start calling more too, right? And that's where the intentionality part will come in. So I would say balancing will require respect, communication, and just being intentional. And if you value this relationship, right, how can I be more intentional with making sure that even though our relationship has shifted and it looks different now, how can we still kind of make that connection happen? Because I think people are so used to the initial phase of that relationship, but every relationship phases out and things happen, and we need to start being open with learning that it's okay for our relationship to shift. It doesn't have to look like what it looked like when it first started, because that's what aids growth as well, right? We'll be stagnant if we've had our friendship this way from day one and it still feels that way, because what are we learning from each other? How are we growing, right? And I think being open with that creates that balance of, okay, clearly something's happened, but how can we even be better in this relationship moving forward now that we've identified that this is something, right? And you could do that by listening, actively listening, doing your check-ins, and just asking people like, what do you need? Asking yourself like, what do I need? Don't personalize someone, whatever they're going through, or if you feel like they're growing apart from you, don't personalize it. You could have a conversation. And I think it's also a good time to reflect on yourself too. Like, we're growing apart for a reason, and I'm playing an active role as well. So what role am I playing? I don't like that. A lot of times people are just like pointing fingers and they're like, oh, this person all of a sudden is acting this way. And that's fair, because I do feel like people do that. But also it's not bad to like self-reflect and ask yourself as well, like, what role am I playing here? If I am playing any, like if this is a relationship that I value, how can we figure things out in a way that is reflective of the change that is happening in our relationship, this transition that's happening in our relationship? I'm sorry, I spoke a lot, but I would like to hear your thoughts as well.
You're making very, very excellent points. And obviously, I can't help but think about the person that might be listening to this episode and then going, yeah, but the thing is, is I've done a lot of these things that you're saying. Or the thing is I'm learning to give them space. I'm learning to respect wherever they're at in their own journey.
Yeah.
I can't help but wonder the person and that's why I guess this conversation maybe is mainly for the people who are not the pointing fingers type of people, but the people who are actively investing in relationships because they want to see it grow.
Yeah.
But the other person is not an active participant in a way in which you are.
Yeah.
And of course, in my case, that was something that was that was a pattern in the relationship that I was in, where I was an active participant. The other person was not an active participant. I don't know. That's the truth, because I can't speak on their behalf. Right. I don't know if it was necessarily a thing about they not wanting to see this grow, right, but more so they not being capable of actually growing. And I guess that's where we get to that tricky part of, and I think most times it's the same thing. Right. But the difference between someone who, let's say, is refusing to grow, and to some degree, that's refusal too as well. And then the one whose ignorance is sort of keeping them where they're at because they're not willing to be capable, basically, to actually take those necessary steps. So I just obviously imagine the person that's listening to this as well, kind of going, like all of these things, putting it back on myself. I'm reflecting. I'm learning that I need to respect boundaries. Because when you think about it, right? Yeah. It says giving someone space to evolve. Yeah. So clearly there's something that we're seeing. Yeah. Yeah. Or experiencing. Yeah. That is making us see that we need change. We need evolvement. We need growth, so to speak, for us to be able to take our relationship to whatever next level that it can be.
Right. I think that one is really hard. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because being the one on the opposite end can really feel like you're being left behind, or like you're not doing something right, or that you're doing something wrong. So I definitely feel like it can be very hard. And why does it feel like we are left behind? Like, why does it feel that way? Why do we feel abandoned when someone we care about is growing or changing?
So we're flipping.
Is it normal? Yes.
We're flipping it. That's a good question. I'm with you. I'm listening to you.
Yeah. Do you think, in your own experience, if you've had any experience or from a client that you worked with, what was that like, just experiencing that for you? And how did you manage them?
So I guess I'm first thinking for myself. Aspect of this being, like, why do we feel sometimes that we're being left behind or abandoned? I guess attachment, like I always say, one of the beautiful things about being a human being is our ability to connect. Yeah. And just shared connectedness in general. Yeah. Our ability to build attachments with people. Now, unfortunately, because we build attachment doesn't mean that all attachments are healthy.
It's healthy. Mm-hmm.
There's unhealthy attachments as well. Yeah. And oftentimes, and don't get me wrong, I think that feeling abandoned versus being abandoned is very different. Mm-hmm. Feeling left behind versus actually being left behind is very different. Agreed. And sometimes we morph everything in the same thing where it feels this way. So I am being abandoned. Mm-hmm. But it also may just be that your priorities in life have shifted. Right. So when we have very strong attachments to people, it can easily put us in a position where we personalize it, like you were saying earlier on, where we see this is a reflection of something I am doing or not doing. Mm-hmm. So as a result of that, I now need to do something in order not to feel abandoned, or in order to stop this feeling of abandonment from happening. Yeah. So I would say that it is normal. Like, it absolutely is normal. It's part of the process of growing relationships. And oftentimes, we don't see relationships as temporary. No. We see relationships as like, this is lifetime. We're going to be friends for life. We're going to be partners for life. But like,
we wish.
I don't know who, where, when, how. It was indicated that relationships are permanent. Life is not even permanent.
Nothing.
So when you're really thinking about it from that perspective, a lot of times we take like the formula for permanence and apply it into a situation that most likely might be temporary. Yeah. And when I say temporary, I don't mean just, the notion of cutting somebody off and just moving, like jumping from friend to friend or partner to partner and whatnot. We're saying temporary in the sense where relationships serve their purpose. Even work relationships serve
Please
their
repeat that
purpose.
too.
The connection is there for a purpose. So once
Yeah.
that purpose is over, to a large degree,
Yeah.
it's just whatever follows that is typically dysfunction and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
sometimes that abandonment and being left behind, it does stem to a large degree from a place of seeing this from a lens of permanence versus trying to look at it from a perspective of, and there's a terminology that I just learned recently by Shan Budram. And she said she called it relationship cocooning. And she explained it's just this notion of recognizing that a relationship is a stepping stone to the next one, to be a better person in the next one.
Wow.
So oftentimes you might find, and it's this analogy where you might hear people say, oh, I was in a relationship and I wanted my partner to change or for them to grow and for them to do all of these things and take care of themselves. And then you leave the relationship and the next person they start doing all of these things with. And a lot of people have resentment and feel abandoned or feel left behind. Clearly, you just didn't like me or you didn't like me enough. But recognizing that sometimes the better self, like the better version of yourself cannot exist if you are in that relationship. It can only exist afterwards.
Right.
So to a large degree, when we look at it from a permanence, those strong feelings of abandonment and being left behind often can be attached. But when we're looking at it from the other perspective, you find yourself actually looking more inwards.
Right.
Of, oh, what was the lesson here? What did I learn about myself? What are things I can improve on for the next friend or the next job or the next relationship?
Right.
So I would say at least it's normal, but the way in which we approach it and look at it sometimes can either put us in a place where we're not able to heal from growing apart.
I love that you said the thing about permanence because, if you're looking at it from that perspective, then it will be very hard for you to remove yourself from that situation, whether again platonic or romantic. And it would be hard for you to kind of work through your own feelings and not internalize it because you're busy focusing more on like, how can this thing that was permanent not be permanent anymore? Is it something that I did? And I think sometimes it could lead to self-blame rather than seeing the situation for what it is. It kind of keeps us stuck in that illusion of we could have controlled this situation that happened when in reality, people are kind of responsible for their own actions and behaviors, right? Outside of us. And I think that's because our nervous system craves familiarity and predictability. So when something changes in the dynamic of the relationship, it feels very destabilizing and you're like panicking and you're like, oh my God, what can I do? And I think sometimes we need to learn to be uncomfortable with feeling destabilized because feeling destabilized can be the one thing that leads to your growth. It can be the one thing that helps you become a better version for yourself or even for your next new friend or even your current friends or your next relationships or your next workplace. But if we keep staying in that familiarity may not be healthy. As comfortable as it is, it may be very, very unhealthy for us. So I like that you said that.
Very spot on, Aisha. And of course, you know this. But speaking of destabilization, I guess one could say in ending my relationship, I got a lot more shock from people and surprise. Even though I think obviously people like yourself were sort of aware of some of the things that I was experiencing and some of the things that were going on in the relationship. I caused myself to experience destabilization.
I remember. I'm so proud of you.
Deciding and saying that this is not the version of love that makes sense for me. This is not the type of love that I'm deserving of.
Speak
and
on
I know
it.
what it is that makes sense for me. Even if I don't know if it exists or is out there or whatnot, I just know that it's not this. And of course, when I say causing destabilization, a lot of times we live in the idea of people. We don't live with the reality
repeat that because I'll be telling you to repeat things and you're not answering me.
Sorry. A lot of times we live in the idea of people. We have a strong attachment to the idea of people and not the reality. And reality, we're not saying, oh, they're this, they're the worst things that you could attach to said person. We're even just saying, is this someone who can actually be, that is considerate? Is this someone who is actually consistently thoughtful? Is this someone who is actually consistently reliable? We have a stronger attachment to the idea. So we don't want to disrupt that because
right.
disrupting that and putting ourselves in a point of destabilization
Yeah.
means that you're living in the reality of said relationship, said person, and with the obviously uncertainty of what could come afterwards.
Yeah.
And of course, as human beings, we've learned to protect ourselves. We find, especially if we've gone through severe experiences of trauma and whatnot, we learn our body, our mind, the brain finds its way to protect oneself. And living in that idea, it can't do that. It's like a nice, safe space where you just keep hoping and desiring that they change, they grow. So, of course, in my experience, it was me actually making that decision and saying, I'm about to make this decision of walking away from someone who, in my own experience, the idea of who they were and the relationship I had with them was, this is someone that I'm going to marry. This is someone that I'm going to partner with. This is someone that I'm going to literally move out of my city and move and most likely live with them. And you see, so just those dreams, as what you want to call it, where sometimes people don't want to have to let go of, we talked about marriage and we envisioned what it was like together. And I'm holding on to said thing that is not necessarily the reality. I feel as though that destabilization, that you're referencing, is what we fear. Yes. Because what it means is we're going to have to literally accept. And we're going to have to sit in the discomforting emotions and recognizing that, honestly, maybe we have grown apart. Maybe we are not compatible. Maybe we had a closer relationship when we were siblings when we were younger, but as siblings when we're older, this is what our relationship looks like now. Right. So because of that, we stay. The fear of just feeling whatever destabilization makes it even harder. So I think what you were saying, you hit the nail on the head with that because is really what keeps us where we're at when it comes to this thing of growing apart and whatnot.
Right. I love the way you wrap that up because it feels like you put a nice ribbon on it. But something that kind of stood out for me was when you were talking about just because you're letting things go doesn't mean it wasn't like a meaningful relationship. Like when you said that earlier, because I do feel like part of the difficulty with feeling that destabilization is now dealing with the reality of processing the loss of this relationship. And I think sometimes, you know, like you were saying, when you had expectation of permanence in that relationship, sometimes we may internalize it and start thinking, oh, so does this mean everything wasn't real? Does this mean that this wasn't a great connection? Does this mean that I'm unable to be loved or love people back? No, that's not what it means. It just means that this relationship served its course, like Paula was saying. And there's probably something that the relationship taught you about yourself, how you are in like personally, like your individuality, but also how you are in your relationships. And it's good to kind of reflect on that because that version of you that was in that relationship may not have even been healthy. So you probably with the destabilization could be a healthier version of you through processing and reflecting, right? So that's something that that's something that really stood out for me. And I just want to say that I'm really proud of Paula because doing that is one of the hardest things that anyone could have done. And I remember you going through the process and how hard it can be for anyone kind of going through that process. But you, like this version of you right now, like I love talking to you about dating because you're so sure of what you want. You're dating with intention. Clearly a version of you that is seeing the light of what dating someone in a healthy way can look like, you know, is present. And I'm really proud of this version of you. Just to put that out there.
No, thank you.
Because I know it's hard, but I think it's good to reference that.
Because you're absolutely right. And I think about it, obviously, I can't do anything else but thank God and be grateful to God
as always.
that I'm where I'm at because a lot of times we also fear that if we lose said attachment to people and we understand that the only way people can grow is actually with distance. Distance is where growth comes.
Agree.
We can often really feel as though life would not get better, especially when there's strong attachment. And that was one of the most difficult decisions I have made, at least as of yet. And I think from the outside looking in, it can seem like, oh, you're the one who's walking away from a relationship. So you're not the hurt party here. But I think even he and myself would agree that that was a very difficult decision because it had nothing to do with necessarily how I was showing up. But more so recognizing that how I was showing up was reflecting to me the type of partner I deserved and I wanted. How I was expressing my love was reflecting to me the type of partner that I wanted and deserved, and the only type of partner that I would settle for, nothing else. So, of course, it can be a very difficult decision because it's you letting go, but then also recognizing that you're coming into yourself, like you said.
I love that.
But if we're not in places in our lives where we create a space for us to be really honest with ourselves, do you think it can make it difficult for us to be able to sort of navigate these types of changes that happen?
Like being honest with ourselves?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's really hard. Being honest with yourself is one of the hardest things anyone can do. And from my own personal experience, sitting with the truth can be very hard. Sitting with the truth can be very uncomfortable. Knowing that this is what you have to do in a situation that involves somebody else or just a relationship period. And when I say this is something you have to do, like remove yourself because maybe you're growing and this person is not, it can be very hard because in reality, when you care and love someone, you want to grow with them. You kind of want your values and everything to align with each other. So when it starts to feel like it's different, the easy thing to do is to stay in that and feel stagnant and start building resentment, feeling angry. Any little thing you guys are like arguing, you start to notice like the connection is obviously not the same. That would be the easy thing to do. But just hearing what I'm saying, it sounds like a lot more work to maintain that relationship. Because then you have to kind of go out of your way to communicate with this person that probably doesn't like to communicate, or you notice that you don't want to go home anymore to your spouse. Or you start noticing that any small thing they say, you're just irritable when there's probably nothing bad that they said. It's just like the things that you've been harboring internally for that person. So I do feel like it can be very hard. But you know what I read somewhere? I don't remember where I read it. It might have been a book. I don't remember. I'm sure I read it from a book. But what they said was the hardest thing sometimes to do in life is probably the best thing for the future you or the future version of you. So I like to take that in things that I'm trying to do in life when I have to be honest with myself and I'm like, this is what I have to do. I'm like, yes, it feels hard right now, but future me will be so happy. And even present me may not really understand the value of the decision I'm about to make. But me in 1 week, even tomorrow, the next day, or even 2 days from now, will be so happy that I made this decision.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you hit the nail on the head with that. I really love that. And I just need you to repeat that again, because I think that there are
like
people,
the quote?
There are people who need to hear that. And even listening to you just say that, it really sat with me in the sense where that's not a perspective that we really use.
So the quote is, sometimes the hardest thing that you have to do is the best thing that you could do for your future self. So right now it always feels hard because again, you're destabilizing yourself, you're uncomfortable. It just feels out of place, on edge. But the stable version of you or the stabilized version of you will be so proud that you did this and did it at the time that you did it rather than prolonging it.
Ooh. Because I want to be honest with you. I just realized recently that I'm still healing from that relationship.
Absolutely,
and there are some things that happen in that relationship that even the versions of myself that were in that relationship could not really deal with the reality. And I had to lie to myself and compartmentalize to protect myself. And those parts of myself are now showing up. And they're showing up now, and I'm having to process it in my therapy. And just sort of living in the reality of that. And it's been really, really hard. But one of the things that I can truly say, even in seeing and recognizing that, whoa, I didn't know that I had parts of myself that could lie to myself like that. I didn't know I had parts of myself that could minimize like this. I didn't know I had parts of myself that could compartmentalize like this as such a strong trauma response. But the thing here, what you said in recognizing the timing as well,
Yeah.
is regardless of those parts that existed, because that was the level of health that I was at, my future self has been so thankful to this.
Right.
And when I say future self, I'm talking about now, obviously, where I'm at
Current me,
now.
right.
Where I have moments where whether I'm driving, I just wake up and I'm just like, thank you, God. I am no longer in that relationship. No, honestly, it's really, really your future self would thank you for those very difficult decisions. But because we never really think about that higher self, that future self, what we want them to be reflecting on, we oftentimes just see what's happening in the present as is the end all be all.
Yeah. And just as you're talking, I'm even remembering my own situation. And I'm just laughing because it was honestly the moment where I decided to just be like, Aisha, be for real. Be seriously for real. Be honest with yourself about this situation. That's when I was like, yep.
Yeah.
Because it was just consistent things that were happening and I was in denial. Well, I knew the truth, but I was still sitting in denial. And that's something that I've learned. Like denial aids comfort, but again, that comfort may not be healthy for you. It's not like a healthy comfort. It's just you being used to what you're used to. But what you're used to may not be healthy for you. Because my comfort was anxiety. My comfort was, I don't know how to communicate with this person. If I say this thing now, they'll be upset. Do you know what I mean?
Walking on eggshells.
Right, walking on eggshells. And it wasn't until I was like, nah, I've seen the patterns. I know the truth. It's time to kind of face the truth head on. And whatever comes after that, I will really be okay. It's just the person, right?
Yeah. So let's quickly talk about that.
Yeah.
What are the signs? Like, are there signs that a relationship has naturally run its course?
Absolutely.
How do you distinguish between a healthy distance and a relationship that really no longer serves us?
I think you could tell a relationship has run its course when communication feels forced, or you guys just don't communicate in a healthy way anymore. You feel unheard. You feel like dismissed. You don't feel like thought of in that relationship anymore. You may start to notice that your core values are also misaligned. Or one thing that I could tell about a relationship running its course was when I don't feel excited talking to that person anymore. Or I just feel drained. Or I feel like, the right thing to do is to call this person or check in on this person. But I just know that they're going to either drain my energy or they're going to change my mood. So I knew that a relationship has run its course when that person has more power over my emotions than I do. So I'm like, this is not this is not a healthy dynamic anymore. And I think the difference between distance and disconnection, like healthy distance, you still feel safe, right?
Yeah.
It feels respectful. You guys are communicating well. You both are able to have a conversation about your needs or what's causing the space in the first place and what you need during this space. But growing apart, it feels like more avoidant and dismissive, right? You feel unheard. You feel dismissed. Your concerns or whatever you're bringing into, it doesn't even have to be concern because it could also be good news that you're sharing, but it just feels like those things are now minimized or dismissed. Distance, you both are still rooting for each other. You still care about each other. You still want the best for each other. Growing apart, there's that underlying resentment. It's unspoken, but you can feel it. We feel energy, right? You can just feel that energy, and there's just a lot of indifference that's happening when you both are in the same space or just communicating. Healthy distance, again, the relationship is growing, right? You could both see like, wow, we had that conversation and look at where we're at now because we're communicating better. It feels safer. We're able to be vulnerable. We are connecting better. Growing apart, it just feels like the connection, there's no self-expression or growth.
So you know what Aisha is basically saying?
Yes.
Is that healthy distance requires active participants.
Yep.
Everyone is an active participant.
Agreed.
Everyone is communicating. Everyone involved in said relationship dynamic, we have a mutual goal and understanding.
Right.
Inactive participation is where relationships are no longer serving, so to speak, where you're actually growing apart. Yeah. Because with the active participation, like you were saying, where we understand, there's a mutual understanding.
Right.
Typically, the only thing that comes from that is positive. It's great. It may not be what you want, but it is what is needed. So there's often still benefit that you see from it.
Right.
The only thing that comes from the other one is just dysfunction
Inactive. Right.
and toxicity. So if you're trying to see the difference,
right. This is
where
it.
there is dysfunction that is existing,
Right.
a lot more dysfunction than functionality is
Right.
not about healthy distance. Is more so about serving its purpose, and now you're overextending. It's like expiration date, but now we're still using
expiration date. You're funny, Paula, please. Okay. Well, speaking about healthy distance and, just active participation in relationships, what are your thoughts about healthy boundaries being introduced with people who may not understand or respect the changes that we're making in our own lives?
Okay, so I'm just going to shoot straight. I'm all for boundaries.
Love it.
I am all for healthy boundaries, not unhealthy boundaries. Unhealthy boundaries being rigid boundaries, things like cutting people off, oftentimes not really having communication, just making a decision. Porous boundaries is the second type of unhealthy boundaries, which is more of never saying no, oversharing, overextending yourself, feeling exhausted all the time with how you're showing up. So I am all for healthy boundaries. I am also actually all for strong, healthy boundaries.
Boundaries, right.
And I'm sort of entering, I'm in a transitional period where I am entering that where I was like, okay, you know what? I don't need to be following this person. And I've never been that kind of person where I'm like, oh, no. I don't need to be following this person. This is someone who caused a lot of harm to me. Why are we following each other?
Right.
Like things along those lines where it's okay for me to understand that what is helpful for me to continuously stay the version of myself that I appreciate, I respect, and I want people to see, and I want to see, and obviously a reflection of God as well. It is okay for me to make decisions that are in line with that, as opposed to, let's say, decisions that are not in line with that. So I do think that, unfortunately, when we set strong, healthy boundaries, people react.
Absolutely.
People often feel some type of way. People sometimes don't understand. People often personalize it too as well.
Yeah.
So, of course, it's not going to be something for a lot of people that's going to be easy. But boundaries are not for people. They're for us.
Right.
And sometimes we see it as it being for the other person, but it's for you in relation to the world.
Right.
It's for you in relation to your family. It's for you in relation to your partner, your friends and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I would say that even if people don't understand or respect the changes that we're making, if you understand and you know that the changes that you're making only nurtures that higher version of yourself, that healthier version of yourself, you don't need the external validation or reassurance from people to tell you or to have to understand for you to know that what you're doing is good. And that's the difference between when we are centering ourselves versus when we're centering other people. So even I'm now obviously at a point in time where I'm recognizing that, you know what, it's absolutely okay for me to kind of just go, no, I don't care to be in communication with you. There's nothing that being in communication with you offers me except for anxiety, and I don't want that.
Yeah. And again, you don't owe people an explanation, but you do owe yourself honesty, right? And like what Paula was saying about this version of myself, does this person align with this version? And if it doesn't, or does keeping this thing around me in my environment, whether that's on social media, in your own personal space, like, does it align with this version that you're trying to create that is healthier? If it doesn't, no, it's okay to set those boundaries and, have them in place and release. Let's talk about releasing the need for people to understand your boundaries, because I think sometimes we like to over-explain. We feel guilty. Please, people are only going to meet you at their own level of self-awareness. But that's not your burden to carry, okay? It's not your burden to carry. And it's easier said than done. But please, let's try and release ourselves from getting the projection of how other people are going through on ourselves or on a decision that we're making for ourselves. Let's try and just release ourselves from that. And let's just be consistent with setting boundaries, because you cannot set boundaries in one space and then not set it in another space, because you're right. I feel like healthy boundaries can look very rigid and it can look very scary, But in reality, it's just aligning with the version of yourself, is aligning with the person that you're trying to become. And unfortunately, that may look like letting go of some relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And obviously, based off on what you're saying, it's also important to just let people know as well that in this process, because you're someone who might be actively making changes, doesn't make you better than people who are not.
Agreed.
Because that is where you're at. That is your own journey. Yeah. If your level of health is increasing, kudos to you. If you're pouring into yourself, you're establishing healthy boundaries, kudos to you. But these ways of showing up for ourselves in a healthy way is not something for us to gatekeep.
No.
I actually see it as, if you can be someone like that to people around you, your loved ones, your community, energy, like you said, it transfers. It really motivates other people as well. Say, for example, like with you, Aisha, when you started with your own physical health journey, and I know it came from it was your own way of really finding things that you could control and things that were making you feel good. And now you've sort of come into it fully. Yeah. I saw that as a point of reference for me. Yeah. Especially with my own history. Now, different reasons why, different history, mine being more so physical health and I guess medical stuff. Yours maybe being more emotional health. Yeah. But seeing you kind of show up for yourself in that way in terms of your physical health, it really inspired me to be like, you know what? You can also do this too as well. So imagine if you were sort of gatekeeping it. And we're not saying go and share with everybody, make everybody be a fitness warrior and whatnot. But even just you showing up, the way you show up for yourself around the people that are supposed to be your support system, we see it. Yeah. So to a large degree, it's very important for people to not see it as I am better than someone else, or this is me, however you might be painting this at, because you have an opportunity to actually be an example to other people.
Right. So basically what Paula is saying is take it as a reflection of a time to also think about areas you could grow in your life, just because if you're observing it in someone else's, rather than using it as a point to compare and like make it such a negative thing. Because we can all grow together if only we paid attention sometimes. Yep. So with that being said, what are some final words of encouragement that we could leave our lovely listeners with, especially those struggling with change in their relationships?
This was a good conversation. I'm just going to...
It felt healing. I'm not even going to lie.
It really did feel very reflective. And just the way in which you're proud of me, I'm also proud of you too as well for your journey. And I'm also just encouraging anyone who is listening that wherever you're at in your own journey, and I guess that's my final words of encouragement, wherever you're at in your own journey, I go by this school of thought of if you haven't quit, if you haven't given up, then you're doing something.
I love that.
That's just the truth. And it is okay to take breaks. Taking breaks is not quitting. Taking breaks is actually resetting yourself. And sometimes during those break seasons, a lot more comes to you. Yeah. So I think that for anyone who's listening, shout out to you. And you should be shouting out to yourself as well. And give yourself a pat on the back that you are in your own journey. You're doing the damn thing, basically.
Yeah, right. I love that. I love that you gave them shout out too. So cute. But I think I would like to leave people with, I just want everyone, including myself, to always remember that changes in relationships, although they can be very painful, it's also a big sign of growth. And I mean growth in terms of that we're evolving, and that evolving doesn't always have to mean losing something, doesn't have to mean losing love. Yep. It could mean making space for deeper connection that align with your authentic self. Because if you don't experience that change, or if you don't let go of that dynamic that may not be really productive for you, then you will never find your true self, one, or never find your true people that really, really value the version of you that is healthy and is working on themselves. So yes, that's
amen to that. Amen to that. That is such a good way to end this conversation. And of course, there are resources out there.
Yes.
So many. And we would also make sure that on our social media, we're always sharing resources with you. Yes. Some of which are people like the likes of Brené Brown, who talks a lot about vulnerability and shame.
Yeah.
And there's the likes of Esther Perel, who talks a lot about infidelity and relationships and forgiveness. And there's the likes of Nidra Glover Tawab, who talks a lot about boundaries in familial relationships, workplace relationships, and personal relationships. There's the likes of Paula.B.Martins, who talks a lot about just intersectionality from a relationship perspective, but also how to be an advocate for yourself in your relationships. And lastly, there is the likes of Shan Budram, who talks about the likes of, let's say, intimacy, sex, communication, openness, having uncomfortable conversations in relationships.
Sound like amazing resources for our listeners. So we hope you use these resources. And of course, you could always reach out to us via social media at Instagram, YouTube, or X at DWHYA Podcast, or TikTok at DWHYA Podcast 1. And of course, if you had any questions, comments, or just want to email us about anything, you could reach out to us at info@DWHYApodcast.com. And Paula B, where can they find you personally?
You can find me at paula.b.martins on TikTok, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube. Yeah. And then you can find my practice at the Human Therapist LLC on LinkedIn and on Instagram and website.
And you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at ab.popoola and LinkedIn at Aisha Popoola. And with that being said, thank you all for listening, and we will
see you next time.
All right, bye.
All right, bye.